Hi friends, and welcome back into my studio. If you are new here, my name is Tammy Ernest and I am a Longarm quilter. And here on my channel, I like to share customer finishes as well as my own personal projects. So I'm just gonna address the elephant in the room, my hair. I knew you were gonna say something, but normally I straighten my hair every day. And the last couple days I've just thought, I may just, I don't know, leave it curly. I may end up putting it up by the time we're done with this because I don't know if I like it or not. But summertime, I just didn't want to mess with straightening it. So I don't know. I never used to have curly hair, but some reason as I'm getting older, it's got this wave to it, which I don't mind. I just got to figure out how to do it. I don't know. Sorry about that. This past weekend, we had Quilt Circle open up for new members, and I'm so excited about the new members that joined. Such a great group of quilters. We had a new member event on Monday night, and I got to know some of them, and just hearing their stories. Every time I have a new group that comes into Quilt Circle, I always ask them in our group to introduce themselves in a post, and it's just so fun to see the stories, their history. Some are new quilters, some have been quilting for a very long time, some started in garment sewing, and others were taught by a grandmother many years ago. So just love the stories. It's a good group, and I've been so excited to get to know them just a tad bit over the last couple days. So next time I open Quilt Circle will not be until late fall, probably mid-November or something like that, so that new members can get in before the start of the first of the year. So if you are wanting to get into Quilt Circle membership, maybe you're just finding my video, Quilt Circle membership is an online group that I host. Basically, my job is just to connect quilters, give them inspiration, motivation, help them find community. I know a lot of you, maybe you're first generation quilter, or you're in an area of the country or a time in your life when you don't have other people close by you that are quilters, and you're just needing that community. So I developed this community a couple years ago, an online group, and I only welcome in new members a couple times a year, and this past weekend was one of those times. So happy to meet the new members in Quilt Circle, and the rest of you, thanks for joining me on YouTube. I so appreciate your comments each week, even though I don't always get to respond back. My goal is to, but sometimes it comes much later. But I appreciate you watching each week. I hope you find inspiration here as well with all the customer quilts. I like to share what I'm working on. It's not been as much here recently, and I'll share why in a couple weeks. But plus Daniel had his surgery. You know, things just kind of slowed down here. So I'm not getting as much as my personal stuff done. But I wanted to share with you today my June Sew Sampler Box. Now, so this is a monthly subscription that that you could receive as well. This month it is called Midsummer Magic, and you may recognize a little bit of that. This month's box has Tula Pink fabric in it. So let me show you that. Now the insert in here always tells you a little bit more about each of the products that are included. And it does say that Tula Pink is celebrating her 50th fabric line. That is incredible. So when she created her 50th fabric line, she went back to the very beginning and revamped some of her beginning fabrics. That was the Full Moon Forest. So she's calling this one Full Moon Forest 2. Nocturnally inspired, bursting with vivid, eye-popping colors, which is classic Tula Pink. This is 20 fabrics, 10-inch squares. I love how they've packaged them together. It's so cute. So let me see if I can show you. I don't really like taking these apart because to me these are, don't you love walking into a quilt store and just seeing how everything's displayed? And I love for my sewing room, my personal sewing room, to feel like that as well. So I like keeping these in their packaging and setting them around. And I think they're just as pretty as a decoration, just like in the quilt store. I absolutely love it. So I don't want to take it all apart, but I will flip these back so you can see. And this is like perfectly done all the way around. It's where do I start? Let's start with some of the, let's just start here. So you're not going to get the full effect because a lot of these have animals on it, if you're familiar with Tula Pink's line. So I'm just getting a glimpse of that one. Okay, I just said that, but I'm going to open them up because I don't feel like with these fabrics you're going to get the full effect, or you're gonna see the full design on them. While it is pretty all rolled up there in one, I think you're gonna like it more if you can see them all. All right, so let's start with that one. Okay, so they are 10-inch squares. Sometimes you'll have a fat quarter bundle that's rolled up like that in the box, but these are 10-inch squares. So we're just gonna open each one of these up. And classic Tula Pink. Look at the animals on there, the birds, the squirrels, the kitty cat, the raccoon, the owl, done with pink. And the branches on this one. So cute, like the lime green color. And this print, and there's an owl, but you can see the very tip, you can see the owl's eyes on this part. So if you're getting a full piece of the yardage of this one, you would get that full effect. Here's that same print done in the darker color. You can see the owl a little bit better. Then here is the bluish green colorway of that. The animals are so bright and pop out so nicely. And this one, the big rabbit right there. I like the floral here. Sorry, it's taking me just a second to get them open like that. Oh, there's the rabbit. So it's the same print, just done in the blues and the greens. Here is a purple. Now look at this one. The owl is I can see owl eyes. You see those? Very subtle in that one. Does it go this way? I can just see an owl eye in there. Very subtle. All right, here's a purple print. So these are just classic Tula Pink colors, designs. I mean, she's one of those designers, when you spot it, you know whose fabric it is. And I think that's wonderful. That's how we're so unique, specially made. So there's fish. The purple in the fish, and then these I would say are more filler in fabric. So they're not have all the animals, but and not quite as busy. So the yellow with the flowers, the purple. This is a pretty color. So whether you like the whole line or not, I do think there are fabrics in here that you could pull out and make in very pretty print. This would be very pretty, and some others. Oh, that one has got to be. I'm wondering if that's glow in the dark. I don't know, but look how it kind of shines up there. The moon one. It may not be glow in the dark, but it kind of looks that way to me. And the blue, this would be so pretty as a baby quilt. Then we have some lattice type grid work there. That same in the yellow. I just think these fabrics, you really need to see them open. There's so much detail to her fabrics. And this is like a bluish purple. This is going to depend on what you put it next to, whether it looks like. So like next to my sweater, it has more blue tint. We were just talking about this in Quilt Circle last night about context with your fabrics. And see, with this one, I put a purple with it. It's going to give it more of a purple look. Put this with it, it could really blend. It's going to depend on what you put it with. So that is what did I call it? This is the Full Moon Forest 2 line done by Tula Pink. 20 10-inch squares. I know that is available to purchase separately from the box. If you like everything you see in the box, there are some a la carte boxes. What that means is you can get just this box and not have to pay us for this subscription. But if you're like me and you just like getting some each month, then you just do the whole box. All right, so the next thing in here, there's always notions. Besides just a pre-cut, there's always notions, and this month we have a 3.5-inch square Creative Grids ruler. Now Creative Grids, if you're not familiar with them, notice the white numbers are your inch lines, and then you flip it the other direction and your black numbers are your 1/2 inch lines. I also like that they have that diagonal line across that. That's how I line up half square triangles. When I'm trimming those, and you've got that diagonal line, so you can line up that line super easy. It's always good to replace your rulers every once in a while. If you're like me, then the corners start getting a little rounded off and rubbed. You know, if you use it as much as we do, they just get worn out. They're not going to last forever. So I love getting some new rulers in the box, because it's one of those things I never, you know, when you go to a quilt store, you buy the fabrics and you buy all the cutesy stuff and don't always buy the needed stuff like a new ruler. All right, the next thing in the box is these are Taylor Seville small magic clip pins. They're just small magic clips is what they're called. Okay, the neat thing about this is that the end of these are very flat. You can kind of see how flat that is. So what they're saying you can do with these is use these to hold your binding. Say, if you do, you could do it if you're sewing your binding to the front side of your quilt. You could clip these around. This is thin enough to fit underneath your presser foot. Now you don't want to stitch over this, but if it says if you have an 1/8 inch clearance, these will still fit underneath your presser foot, and you can have the needle run right beside it. So these are the small ones. They do make larger ones as well. And it says that this is, it was like, I just read this a little bit ago, and maybe it was on I did watch some videos on this from Taylor Seville. You can go on their website and you can watch tutorials where they talk about the different ones. And it talked about this metal, it must have been in the video that I was watching, because I don't see it listed here. So it's like a surgical grade metal. It's not flimsy. It's stiff, but it's thin enough to fit underneath your presser foot. So there are some markings on here. You can see it says 1/4 inch and 1/2 inch. So if you, but I really, the thing about these is you can leave them on the edges of your quilts and still sew along. So I have the ones that I normally use, okay, ones like these, and I have other smaller ones too. So notice how fat that is at this end. You would not be able to keep this on your fabric unless you were way far away from your needle. It's just not gonna work. So their whole idea with these is that you can keep them on your fabric, and you can run this right underneath the presser foot. The markings on there, I don't feel like the markings, they have 1/4 inch and 1/2 inch. I don't really see a great use for those. I was hoping that if I line up the edge of my fabric right here, then I could, you know, if I line it up with this part, does that mean that I'm stitching at 1/4 inch? And it just doesn't work that way. So I think these are best if you're trying to keep a lot of English paper piecing together. They would be great if you're trying to keep, you know, a stack of blocks together. They're not going to leave pinholes in your fabric. It's in a nice strong clamp, you can see there. So just another option if you don't like Wonder Clips. And I'm not even sure if these are Wonder Clips or if this was a different brand as well. I only have a couple of these, but I do have a lot of the smaller ones. So another idea, this is a package of 6. I know they do come in packages of 12 as well. There are larger ones. These are the small ones. So I'm sure I'll use these. All right. Also in the box is some Aurifil. Let me take this out because this is a very, let me just have to pop it open. This is a very pretty color. This is called Violet. Aurifil spool. Isn't that pretty? So it goes great with these Tula Pink fabrics. Very pretty. Now, I've mentioned before that I don't piece with colored thread. I actually keep an Aurifil cone on my sewing machine all the time, and that's what I use. But what I do with these is I drop them in my binding bag, and so when I'm doing bindings for myself or for clients, I have a good choice of colors. These would have been great. This one would have been great on the quilt that I showed last week with the purple minky on the back. That would have been a great color. And the color I used was fine, but this will be another great option. So this is available for purchase outside. This is 50 weight thread. So if you want to drop one in your binding bag, something like that, that would be great. Now, I did not show you the pattern that goes along with the fabrics. It's an owl pattern. Oh, I know some of you guys are just going to go nuts over that. So there is some additional yardage needed. The 10-inch stacker or the 10-inch squares are mainly for those owl bodies, and then you'll need some other fabrics to do the outline. Obviously, for the background behind the owl, you'll need some white, and then it does use a bit of a gray around those, but a great pattern. There is a finishing kit for this, so if you get the box and want to do it, this pattern is not available outside of the Sew Sampler box. So that is the benefit of getting the box. So if you do not have the subscription and want to get a la carte, you can purchase that a la carte. All right, one other thing in the box is the next block in the flowering quilt along. Isn't that one pretty? I love the reds on this one. So let's talk about the flowering quilt along. I want to show you. All right, so I did show you my first block. This was from the very first month. So this quilt along has been going on for, this is the third month for it. I am not using the called for, which is the Summertime Fabric by Camille Ross-Gelly. It's a beautiful line, but I used this fabric line from Fancy That Design House. I used this on my square up quilt that I had done a couple months ago, and so I really like these fabrics. If I haven't told you that already, I really like these fabrics, and so I wanted to do mine in this one. The first month that I got the box, I just picked colors. What did I just do with that pattern? This was the first month. It showed red and green, so I just pulled out some colors. I did the brown and the aqua bluish color. Since I did that block, Fat Quarter Shop has now come out. They did sell a kit with the summertime fabrics. At some point after that kit was done, or whatever point, I don't know, they printed or they provided this a guide for using other fabric lines if you want. And I love this guide. I'll show you that in just a second. So it shows the summertime one. It has this one is Gentler Times by Lori Holt. They've got a good variety of different ones that they've colored this by. This is a Judy Rothermel one, so more of your 30s time ones. This is Corey Yoder. Her line of Bloom, which many people are using. This one is the True Colors line by Tula Pink. They also did Fig Tree, the Agatha Road fabrics. So it has much more of an autumn feel. And then they also did Primitive Gatherings. This is Pumpkin Spice, so another nice autumn feel. So what I did, because I already knew I wanted to use this fabric line, so what I did is I took the fabrics that were listed for summertime, and I did similar fabrics in pulling from my bundle that I had of the fabric. So where it had a yellow print, so I've got my whole stack here. So where it had a yellow print, I chose a similar one, a gold. And so I tried to be very similar to what it was on this page. So if it had yellow, I tried to use gold. Here's a couple golds that I have. This is A and B. Then C and D were a little more red in color. So C, I don't have any reds in my line. I had some pink color, so I used that one. And then I did an orangey color for those. So a little different, but still similar, because I want to, they know what the whole pattern is. They know what it all looks like together. So they're putting fabrics together, they're gonna look nice together. So I want to go pretty similar. Now the E, I might have used that one, yeah. Okay, here's the E one. Whoop. And it's a blue. And notice this one is kind of a blue aqua, so I wasn't too far off with that one. F is another reddish color one. I don't know where that one is. You'd think I have these in order, but. Oh, on here it's a reddish color one, and I chose a pink one. And I tried to do different patterns because a lot of these prints have the same different colorway but the same design on them, and so I tried to get a mixture of ones because I didn't want a block that ended up with two of the patterns that had stripes on them. So all right, that one was F. G is also a reddish color one, but I chose this one. It's a little darker. Then H, notice H is, we're back to several of them. H, I, and then K, L, and N, they're all very green prints. Now I do have quite a few in my thing, so I'll show you what I picked out. H is one that I used this time, I think. So here's H. And then I is this one. So I did a little darker. Then the J, we're back to, and the reason these are grouped this way is because it's how many you need. So these yellow prints, you only needed a fat eighth. These prints, the C, D, and E that I've marked, only needed a fat quarter. This bundle here, this group of them, you needed a half yard. So that's why they're grouped that way. So for J, let me see what I picked out for J. I did, so there it shows a little bit more of an orange or a red, and I did another one of the orange prints. K, again, we're back to a greenish blue one, and so that's the one I chose for that one. L, another green one, or bluish one right there. All right, and then M, notice it is yellow on there. I think that's where I went back to another gold. In, I think I used in. Oh, here it is. This is the green. I like this one. I use this one for the back of my square up quilt. And then O is a pink one. And notice I've marked every one of these. So now when I get the next block, I'm not having to make these decisions every month. I've already decided which fabrics I'm going to use. So now each month when I get the pattern and it shows you the SKU number and you're using, you know, this block or this fabric, 55320-16, that's what's listed on the pattern. And I look at my my key here and it says fabric A. So I look in my stack and find fabric A. I don't have to make any more decisions. I did all the decisions at once. So all I do is pull out that A fabric. Now, back to the first month. Nope, that's this month. That's last month. This one, notice it used the reds and the greens, and that's why I had these out, because I want to show you on this one, if I would have made these decisions ahead of time, the brown would have been this pink, and it still was this, this fabric, if I remember right, in, which I think is what I did for that one. Or it was another one. No, that's H. So N was another one that looked very similar, I think. I had these laid out in the correct order. Let me find N and I'll show you what it would have been. Oh goodness sakes. Oh, here it is. All right. This would have been the two colors. Whoops. This would have been the two colors if I had done it in the key that I have now. A little different. So this would have been the pink in this part and it would have been a little darker in this part. I'm not going to redo this block at this point. If I get to the end of the quilt and feel like these colors don't quite look right in the section of the quilt that this goes on, I don't know if these are done in a grid pattern. I don't know if they're set on point. I don't know the finishing instructions. But if I feel like it needs to be changed, then I can always switch to these colors. I can make a second block and I might use this one on the back of it or something like that. But after that, the blocks that I did follow the new grid that I made. So this is last month's block. Here's what it looks like in their picture. So very, very similar. Let me see. The fabric that I picked for this one is a little darker than that's in here, but I really like it. I like it. The two prints here, this is actually two different prints of fabric, but they're very close. And even on their pattern, they're very close. So I really like that one. I really like that one. Okay, so this month's block, this one. And it uses, I had these laid out and now I've messed them all up. So let me pull out the three fabrics, the three colored fabrics that this one uses real quick. Okay, so I pulled out the three fabrics that were going to be used. Going by my key for this block, I have these three fabrics. And I think it might be kind of neat. Because here I have, you know, a pink one. This one's kind of the middle one. And then this one's got more of the orange. But even this print here in the middle has that same orange. This one does too, but you just don't notice it quite so much. So those are the three fabrics that will be for this block. I kind of like it. I kind of like it. You never know when you're pulling fabrics, but I will work on this block and show you when I get it done. These blocks do measure 18.5 inches. When they are put together, when they're in the quilt, they will be 18 inches. Really loving this. So that is now these patterns are also available separately from the box. They're quite a bit more expensive. So if you really are like the blocks that you see, I would get the Sew Sampler box because it comes in your box, and then you get all these other goodies as well. So that is the Sew Sampler box for June. Now this month I did receive a gift from the Fat Quarter Shop, and they asked me to review this. And so this one arrived, and it's so cute. Don't you love the box? This is called the Sweet Snips box set. Comes in this very cute box. It has a magnetic closure on the front, and when you open it up inside, it has 3 sets of scissors. And now it says these are the Sweet Snip scissors, all put together in a stunning box. You have an 8-inch, a 6-inch, and a 3.5 inch. Ideal for cutting fabric, thread, everything in between. You can keep them in the box. I have not been keeping them in the box because I've been using them. I have been using this larger pair to trim off my quilts. When I finish up a quilt, then I trim it, and I've been using those. I like the chunkiness, the chunky feel to the handle. Very sharp scissors, but I also like that they're not super long. You know, I mentioned before I have arthritis in my hand. So if I have a pair of scissors that has to open very wide, that's what's hard for me. So this one is not bad. I don't have a problem with that one. So it's a good span there. It's not too wide for me. So, and they're very sharp. They feel really good in using them to trim off the quilts. The next size, the medium size, I have been using as my snips. I keep them right there in my cart. And when and I get to the end of a pass and I need to clip my threads and move my machine down to the other end, then when I start the thread at the other end, that's what I'm using these for. I like this size. And I had a different pair I showed you not too many months ago that I had just a Fisker's pair that I was using. And so these are very similar. Again, a nice chunky, but not too wide. Even the scissors themselves, they're just a little bit chunky, but they've come to a nice point, not super small. That's more what the next set is for, but really nice. A nice medium-sized scissors that work well for trimming my threads. Then the last set is the tiniest one. These are the ones that I have not used yet, but my intent on this, it does come with the sleeve to cover up the end. This is going in one of my project bags for cross stitch. So look how pointed, nice point, nice small scissors. But again, they have the handle part of it is just a little chunkier, a little more substantial than some other scissors I have. So nice little snips, and then it does come with a sleeve to protect so that they don't poke out my bag. And then it does mention in the pamphlet that came with it that you can pop out this foam piece here. So if you don't, like me, I'm not going to keep my scissors in here all the time. You can pop this out, and then you've also got a nice little case that can be used for something else. It's the nice blue color. Very pretty. So I appreciate Fat Quarter Shop sending that to me. I have been enjoying using those. These do have a value of $54.98, the 3 scissors together. A great value for 3 very nice pairs of scissors. So I appreciate Fat Quarter Shop sending those to me for my review. All right, it's time to move on to customer quilts. This is Trish's quilt, and Trish says, when I first saw the Meadowmere fabric, I didn't realize it was metallic. And what she's talking about is this fabric right here with the flowers. The leaves underneath the flower are a metallic gold color. I did print off, there are, this fabric line comes in several colors. And I don't know that you might be able to see the metallic on the printout. This one is terracotta. You can see the fabric line there, and those leaves underneath are metallic. This one is called Night. And then the one that Trish used is called Cloud. And that has this metallic, a little bit of metallic to it. So she said she wasn't quite sure at first if that's really what she wanted, but then she found the second fabric, which is the Windham Hamilton. She found this in another shop, and this one also I've seen in a couple different colors. This actually is in a line that's more of a reproduction type of line, and I saw it like in a creamy color background with the black printed on it. This one is a red with the cream color printed on top of that one. So she combined the two together. She said, I found the Windham Hamilton in another quilt shop, and I immediately pictured this quilt in my mind. I have no idea what the pattern is or who designed it. So she has done 2-inch, probably 2.5-inch strips by 4.5. 2.5 by 4.5 is what I would guess they were. I didn't measure them, and she has just alternated it, made the entire quilt in that way. She said she did not strip piece this. She pieced every one of them, cutting every rectangle and then piecing it together. Notice that the flowers are always running up and down. Now this quilt is square. It measures 64 by 64, so you could orient the quilt the other direction where the rectangles are horizontal. I felt like it was more in keeping what Trish wanted, just because the flowers were up and down if I oriented it this direction in this way. So she created the quilt herself. And then in regard to quilting, let me show you the back. She asked me to put the Shannon Cuddle Minky on the back, and this is in the sand color. Very pretty. I just really like this. And that really shows off the pantograph. This pantograph is the Moulin Rouge pantograph. This is so pretty, so classy with those fabrics. And so Moulin Rouge is nice spiral, nice big feather design. On the back of that spiral, the spiral is very tight, comes into a tight point, and then as it spins back out, it does have a little bit of a circle there, a little bit of a circle in a couple different parts of the pantograph. But the nice big floral, not floral, but the nice big paisley or feather type on the back of that spiral is just so beautiful. I absolutely love this one. So pretty. The fabric, or the thread I used on this one is the Omni Cream. That blended super nice with the front, and then as usual, those thread colors do not show on the Minky. The Minky just soaks up those threads. The color anyway, and all you're left with is the texture on the back. Just love it, love it, love it. So Trish came up with her own design as well. If you have two coordinating fabrics that you like, and you can, doesn't always have to be squares. We think of squares a lot of times in doing like a checkerboard, but doing rectangles and just alternating them. Quilting doesn't have to be hard. It's a beautiful quilt. You put a nice Minky on the back, or even other nice solid fabric on the back would be very pretty, and you have just a beautiful quilt. So Trish, you did a great job on this one. So if you're looking at this quilt thinking, I have never seen this pattern before, you're absolutely right, because Wanda created this on her own. I am so impressed. So let me tell you the story of this one. Wanda says that she started with one of Cora Yoder's Barn Star quilts, and that is what is right here in the center. And I printed off the cover of that pattern so you could see what it looks like. So she took this Barn Star, and Cora Yoder has probably 11, maybe 12 of these out. They're smaller little cards that you can get. The Barn Stars, it doesn't tell me the measurement. It's like 24 by 24 or something like that. So what Wanda did is took that in the middle and she set it on point. So you can see how that matches like that. How cute is that? Okay, so she started with that on point, and then she says the blocks around the outside edge came from the Quilt Maker's 1000 Blocks book, and that's what the cover of this book looks like. So she went through it and picked out blocks that she liked, and that's what she's put around the rest of it. So let me show you those real quick. There are 2, 4, 6, 8 of those, I believe, all different blocks. You can see one there, and one there. Now she's using all shoreline fabrics, and there's one there. She said she's making this for a friend, and the friend's favorite colors are blue and green, and so this fabric line was perfect. And then there's 2 more blocks up there and 2 more blocks up there. So those were all made from using this book. And then she says the ribbon feature was inspired by Lynn Wilder's Sew in Wild Oaks pattern. And I'll have to look that up. I didn't look that one up yet. But what she's talking about is this ribbon type feature right here, and this is very intriguing, but in looking at it closer, this is like an hourglass unit. So what you're doing, the blue and the white are each quarter triangles, and then this lighter blue is a half square triangle. So how you do this, and I've talked about this quite a bit in different quilts, you can do so much with this little block. And so you layer a blue and a white square, and you sew down either side of the diagonal. You cut those apart, and that's going to give you a blue and white half square triangle. Okay, then what you do then is layer that with a blue square, the light blue square, and then you're going to sew perpendicular to the lines that you did with the blue and white one, with the dark blue and white one. You're going to sew perpendicular this time, 1/4 inch on either side of the diagonal. When you cut that apart, you end up with this hourglass unit that then is half the light blue and then 1/4 white and 1/4 dark blue. Now notice this one, the white is over here to the right hand side, you want to say, or upper right, and then we're switching this one. But every block it's the same, because if I turn this around, the light blue is going to be on the same side. Now the problem is when you create 2 at a time, when you sew on either side of that diagonal, you're going to have one, when you cut that apart, you're going to have one that has the light blue on the left hand side and one that has the light blue on the right hand side. So in looking, no, you'd be able to use those other places, because then she's used those down here. I'm just looking to see. So this whole line has the light blue, what I would say on the bottom left is what I'm looking at. But this whole line, you can see this unit right here. That light blue unit is on the bottom right. So if you make 2 at a time, and we're putting it into a pattern like this, you would be able to use both sides of it. Sometimes if you're doing something and you're only needing you know, the half color, the half square of the light blue on one side, you may have to do one at a time. But the way this is oriented, you could use both of them. So but all of this whole line, the light blue is on the bottom, it's the half on the left hand side, and so you're switching that block back and forth, and it gives that ribbon effect. That is so cool. I don't know that I've ever seen that before. So let me just show you. I'm not sure if I'm explaining it very well. Let me hold it like this. You see the ribbon? Isn't that so cool? So here is your hourglass unit. Half of it is the light blue, a quarter is the dark blue, and a quarter is the white. On this one, every one of these blocks has the half square triangle in the light blue on the left-hand side. This one does as well, it's just flipped the other direction so that we get this ribbon effect. But other places in the quilt, like you can see down here, on this one, on this strip and this strip, the half square triangles in the light blue are on the right hand side. So when I make two at a time and I would have this square underneath here, you know, I'm layering a blue and white half square triangle with a solid light blue. When I stitch down either side of the diagonal and open that up, one of them is going to have the light blue on the left hand side, and one of them is going to have the light blue on the right hand side. But in the way that Wanda's done this quilt, she's able to use all of those in the quilt top. So that's how she did the barn star in the center. She used the 1000 quilt block book to create the blocks that are around that. The ribbon effect was done from Lynn Wilder's Sew in Wild Oaks pattern. If I can find that, I'll link that down below. And then the setting triangles were hard to figure out, you think? And I even had to dust off my Pythagorean theorem. I am so impressed. So let me show you the setting triangles. So here on this would be the corners. Look at those. I mean, she didn't take it easy on herself. Look at that. And then you'd also have setting triangles, would be down here at the bottom. On each of the sides, north, south, east, and west, you're going to have setting triangles there as well. Wanda, you did an incredible job. If you don't become a pattern designer, I don't know what else you do. Oh my goodness. The backing was pieced to use up some blocks and fabric from the line I purchased, and the quilt is for a friend who helped me when I had a medical emergency at work. Her favorite colors are blue and green together, so the line of fabric seems perfect. Let me flip this over so you can see the backing. And if you didn't know any better, you might say that this was the front of the quilt, because she's got pieced blocks in here. She's got large sections of fabric left over from the fabrics from the front, but then she's got nice pieced blocks in here. She's done, so here's a nice piece block in the middle, fabric, 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 like a whole piece. And then here she's done this one in 4 quadrants with a piece block here, smaller fabrics there. There's a pieced block down here. So again, some of these I recognize from the front of this book, so I'm sure she's pulled them from that. Here is a nice pieced block again. Here is another 4 quadrant, 4 quadrant, a 4 quadrant up there. Wanda, she did an incredible job. All right, as regarding pantograph, she said her son helped her pick out a pantograph, and they asked me to do Open House A, and this is on Linda's Electric Quilts. That's where they found this one. And so kind of a swirly, it has some points in there, and she said the friend the quilt is going to is Italian, and she thought this one kind of had an Italian type of look, maybe like some Italian type of scroll work or something like that. But they really like this design, and this one is much more blocky, so I don't know how well you can see it. Camera doesn't pick up the color difference very well, but this middle section right here is blue, and so that is showing you one pass. So you can kind of see, I'll hold that up there for just a second, and the printout kind of has the rows pretty close together. I would leave just a tad bit more gap right there. That's a little close for my comfort. But that's the way it stitches out. And then notice, so it's kind of done in a block pattern, but when the block repeats, then you get this kind of heart feature right here too. That's really cute. So I did use the Omni Natural White thread, kept the quilt light and bright and fresh, and didn't dull the fabrics at all. And this is all Camille Roskelley's Shoreline fabric line. So just beautiful, just very pleasing, very pleasant. And I know her friend is going to love this one. She did such a great job, and she better tell the story. Wanda, you better tell the story of the whole quilt too, because us as quilters, we really appreciate the work that you put into this, and all of the math you did, and just figuring out how those blocks go together. Someone else that doesn't quite know quilting may not appreciate that as much, so it would be great for you to write down the story of this as well. This quilt measures 73 by 73, and said it's her own pattern, except for that, you know, she's pulled, whoops, I still have it on the backing fabric. but she's put all of those designs together and she did such a great job. Wanda, I am so impressed. You should be very, very proud of yourself. Shannon's quilt measures 78 by 89, and she said she had this pattern off of Etsy, and I'll put in a picture here for you to see. I don't have the pattern name, but it shouldn't be too hard for you to figure out. These look like 2.5-inch squares, and they're all done in vertical columns. So you have 3 rows of vertical columns, 2.5-inch squares, and then you have one long piece of sashing. Again, it looks like 2.5 inches. She's done it in very bright colors. This is a great stash buster. Now what I want you to notice is that these 2.5-inch squares are they're staggered in the column. So how it looks like that is done is that in starting on the bottom, there's not a complete square across the bottom. So this can be done in a couple of ways. If you want to use very small pieces, you could start one with a 1/4 inch, a 2.5 by a 1/2 inch or something like that, and another one with a 2.5 by a 1 inch or something like that. The other way is just to join a long row of 2.5-inch squares, and then you know the measurement that you want. So this one measures 78 this is 89 lengthwise, so then you just cut all your strips to 89. But what you'll want to do is to stagger that start. So maybe a 1/4 inch off of one row that you're starting and a 1/2 inch off of one, or do it by halves, maybe a 1/2, a 1, and a 1.5. You can decide that. But then that's going to give you the staggered rows or the staggered columns within here. Beautiful stash buster. I mean, it looks like jewels, doesn't it? Just such bright teals, magentas, there's black prints, but there's bright reds. She's used so many different ones. I can see fruit prints in here, I can see batiks in here, floral prints, stripes, everything, and it's just wonderful. The backing fabric that she chose is a black, kind of like a grunge print. It's a little bit of a modeling to it, a little bit of a yellow in there, but every one of her vertical sashings is different. So purple and teal and black and pink, and some are solids, others are prints. Like here is a polka dot, and so this one has some polka dots, this one has some polka dots, so she has that theme in the sashing there. The pantograph, this is called Double Bubble. I did a light gray on this one. Light gray works great with these colors. I really like it. You might even been able to go medium gray, but I didn't want to dim the quilt. The quilt top is very bright, and so a light gray just blends a little bit, but doesn't dim it at all. And the light gray shows up really nicely on the back. You can see that pantograph, super nice. This is done, it stitches out more in like a wave pattern. And you have some bubbles above the wave, some bubbles below the wave, and then sometimes you have a bubble inside of a bubble. And we really like this circular pattern with all of the squares on the front, but then because she has that polka dot theme running in some of her fabrics, then repeating that in the pattern was very, very nice. Didn't make this super dense. It's probably 6 inches tall there. Would be the height of the pantograph, and just super cute. Really like this one. I think Shannon told me this is the first quilt she's ever made, so she did a really great job. Beautiful colors. And the next quilt I have is her mom's. So Shannon's mom's name is Judy, and Judy brought me this quilt. Now, I don't believe that Judy made this. I think it was either given to her or she found it. It was just a quilt top, but an antique one, and I love quilts like this. I love the history. I love just thinking about who made it and what their circumstances were. I just absolutely love it. And so this one measures 78 by 92. So I do have the 78 width this way, 92 in the length. But this has a very interesting layout in that all of the flower blocks are pointed in except for one that I'll show you here in just a minute. But I did a little bit of searching around. I wanted to find out what this quilt block was. And I have this book called, this is a Judy book, the Quilt ID book, right here. And looking through this one, and I found about, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages of blocks that all look very similar to this. But I do think I have found the one that it is. So sometimes they're called tulips, sometimes they're called lilies, sometimes they're called peonies. But notice on this block, it's tipped sideways here, but I hope you can see. So notice on the block, this, the flower. So these are pieced where this is applique. So the stem here, the stems are applique where this is pieced. Now in the back, this was all hand done. It was all hand pieced, but these are set in seams. And it's the same block, even the green right here, it's the same piece right here, and then it's just red with green there, and then the stem is green as well. Notice the leaves on here, they're kind of a heart shaped. And so in looking at the patterns on this one, I believe that is this number 370, which says Bed of Peonies, and I'll point to it right here. So right there where my finger is. Now the differences I see on this one is this one in the book looks like the entire flower is the same fabric. So all 8 pieces of this flower, if you want to say that, all have the same fabric. Where this one, they have the flower in the red, and then what would be what I consider like the outer leaves that then fold back, and then your flower comes out of that. That is done in the green. That's the only difference that I see in this. There's lots of other very similar to ones, and if you can get, you know, you might even check your local library to see if you can find this book. Very interesting to look at. So that one is called the Bed of Peonies. There are other peony blocks that are called peony blocks that have a little bit different flower shape or leaf shape to them. Sometimes the stems are different. Sometimes they're twisted. Sometimes they're straight. Sometimes the flowers are, instead of that shape, sometimes they're more of a, they're all very similar. The tulips are more of a little bit different shape, you can see there. But anyway, so look through that book, and that's what I found. Then I have this book as well, and this is called the Encyclopedia of Classic Quilt Patterns, and this has 101 quilt patterns, but it also has the instructions for them. And look at what I found in this book. So I was looking through here, see if I could find something that was similar. And not only did I find something that was similar, I think I found pretty much the exact same thing. So this one is called Peony. And look at that quilt. It's almost the exact same thing. Now, the thing I noticed differently right off the bat is all of these peonies are straight up and down. You know, it's a directional, where this one, the quilter has faced them in. So these 2 rows face in, and I almost oriented it the other way, but this is the length of it, and this is the width of it. So these 2 rows, she has oriented the flowers so that they face in this way. These 2 rows, she has oriented the flowers so that they face in this way. So when you're looking at it, all the flowers are growing towards the top. I don't know if she had planned on putting this on the back of a couch or something like that, where if you had folded it in half the lengthwise, then you could put it up on the couch and you would see all of these flowers. I don't know. It's a little different for being on a bed. Maybe somebody else has more history and will be able to tell me. But in looking at this pattern, it says, the description of it says, whether you call them peonies, starflowers, lilies, or poinsettias, the pieced flowers in this quilt block continue to charm quilters. Through the years, the stems and leaves have been twisted and turned, straightened and pruned to create a multitude of variations. Yet with each twist and turn, the flowers maintain their radiant appeal. And I just love it that I was able to find that. So this part of the flower, the peony, is pieced. The rest of it is appliqued, and these appliqued stitches, they are so tiny, so tiny. I mean, just occasionally can I see them peeking out from the edge, but they are so tiny, so beautiful. This is the red fabric reminds me of like a 30s print that you would see today, what they would call a reproduction of the 1930s. That's what it looks like, a red with like 3 little dots on there, very similar to that. The green is a solid green. And notice the little tiny basket down here at the bottom, that is actually appliqued as well onto the corner of that block. And then this is set on point. You can see your block there, but when you get into on the corners, you can see the blocks are set on point, and here's your setting triangle. It's all the same muslin type of fabric. I can see in different spots where it wasn't the same fabric the entire way through. The edge all the way to the left-hand side, it's a little bit of a lighter fabric. And so they're using what they had, and I just love it. And actually the borders were not the same. So then there's a solid border all the way around. And the borders were not consistent. Now, when I trimmed up the quilt, I did make the side borders both the same and the top and bottom border both the same. But I did not make all 4 borders the same width because that's not the way it was pieced. And I wanted to make it as close to the original the way it was given to me as I could. So big wide borders there, and then you can see the setting triangles. Now there was not a backing with this, and so I had some muslin very similar, and so that's what we put on the back. Very pretty. Now I did want to point out something. I mentioned that all of the blocks, and I'll come back to this one, the book, in just a second here. All of the blocks were pointing in except this one right here. And I'll put the picture in so you can see the larger picture. So those 2 are faced in, and every place else on these 2 rows, these blocks are faced in. But this one right here is facing this direction. So I just love it. To me, I mean, we try so hard to make sure we fix our mistakes, and maybe the original quilter of this one, the piecer of this one, would be horrified that I'm showing that, see the mistake. It's not a mistake. This is history. This is life. I mean, isn't it? I mean, this is just how things go, and you get the whole quilt done and you realize you had a block turned. But I just love it. I wish there was history with this one. I wish, if we knew more, maybe I can share more later. But from what I remember, this quilt, the quilt top was given to her, and just asked if I could finish it. So 78 by 92. Let me go back to the book. The book, I love this book because it does give you instructions on how to finish the quilts. And so it gives you the templates. The red part and this little green part, those are cut with a template that you would trace from the book, and then piece those in. Those are set in seams. And then the other squares here, like on the corner, this white square here, this triangle here, those are actually pieced in the book. Now originally I'm sure they were cut from templates, I'm sure. But in the book, in giving these instructions, they then tell you the actual size that you can rotary cut those pieces. But this part is cut from a template, and then these are also cut from a template. The leaves are, and that's all in the book. And I also love this book. This was done in 2001 by Oxmoor House. So not that old, honestly, not that old, but it is interesting how things change over time. So in the front of it, they do show you how to do, there's a whole, what do they call it in the front? They call it a quilt maker's workshop, and it's like how to quilt. It's all in the front of it. And some things, like I said, would probably be different today. We would do things a little bit different. Just with the newer tools that we have and things like that. But they do have a whole section about set-in seams and how to piece those together. And like I said, this was all hand pieced. These blocks are pieced and this part of it is appliqued. Very fun, very fun. All right, I'll flip it to the back so you can see the pantograph. We wanted to go with something classic. We wanted to go with something that more traditional in what this quilt actually would have had on it. Now you can see in the picture of this one, it is total custom quilting and probably hand, honestly, hand quilting. And I have friends that can do custom quilting like this on their long arms. That is not me. That is not where my talents lie, but so many others can, and it's absolutely beautiful. I absolutely love it. But instead, we do an all over print. This is called Feather Meander. So a very classic traditional type of quilting pantograph to it. So you have the feather, the large backbone to it, the feather shapes on that backbone. A little different in that, a typical feather, you would have what I would call like the large plume on the top, and it would go down and you'd be doing another feather. Feathers are usually done in, along the borders. You can see in the quilting on this one, they have done feathers in rings like that. You see that a lot. So this is Feather Meander, and that we have that feather motif, but then we're working our way to another part. We're not just doing one motif and then moving on to a separate section of the quilt. This is, the way the long arm works. I want to do one continuous pass, edge to edge design over there. So Feather Meander, we have a little bit of a swirl with a feather motif on the back of that one. But the obvious part of this pantograph is the large feather motif, and then just the echoing to get back around there so we can go on to the next part of the feather. I didn't make it super tight. I mean, you can see the size of this, the feather right here and in here. There's a lot of negative space in here, a lot of open squares, where in the book that I just showed you, that's where they would have the large wreath shape, the large feather right there. So I want to see that feather design, and I think you can see it very nicely. So not so large that you lose that, but not so tight that it wouldn't have matched with the time of the quilt, that I feel like. While they did some very intense hand quilting, I just felt like we needed a little bit bigger. And this pantograph really gives a nice coverage, even though the feather itself is probably about 8 inches long there. So very cute. Just love it. This is the this is the Omni cream color. That's what matched with the muslin. And then be giving this back to Judy for her to put the binding on. But I love it. I love it. I love the history of it. And I'm so happy that the quilt is worth finishing. Let's finish it so that we can display it and have it out. I know, we find a quilt top and we don't want to mess with it, but I feel like, it's not a lot of good if it's just tucked away in a cupboard. I really think that, at least in my opinion, that these are worth finishing. Have them out, maybe not, your daily use, but at least out on a bed or the back of a chair where you can enjoy them. Maybe up on a quilt rack so you can see it hanging. It may not be one that you want to use all the time. Although these stitches, very nicely done. Nothing was pulling apart. None of the piecing, none of the applique was coming apart. It's been very well taken care of. So it's stitched up beautifully. We did use a cotton batting inside in order to keep with that time period as well, that it would have been a cotton and not an 80-20, I don't think, or a polyester. So use the nice cotton. If it ever needs to be washed, that's up to Judy what she does there. If it needs to be washed, it'll, as long as the fabrics hold up, it should keep that crinkly and that old time feel. So very pretty, Judy. Thank you for allowing me to work on this one. Thank you for joining me today. If you are in need of long arm quilting services, my information is down below. You can download the long arm prep instructions in order form, and it gives you all the instructions on how to prep your quilt for sending, and also all the information you need there. I will be back here next week because every quilt is worth finishing. We'll see you then.